hunting podcast.
Yeah.
And the Davis brothers were on there. And it was a really neat story for me. I didn't know the story, but I didn't realize that both of the brothers were trying to make it as artists at the same time. And,
Yep.
you know, it's like Jacob was like, they're going to radio. They're
At the same time.
A&R teams are like taking them to compete against each other.
So the flip side of that is I was Jacob's producer at the label
Are you
during
serious?
that time. So like when his brother, he
Yeah.
had moved to town a couple years before his brother.
Yeah.
And he was working with me at Black River. And we had, you know, we did the whole album and
Yeah.
then his brother got signed. And where we were at Black River, things just kind of took a different turn and
Yeah.
turned out different. But, and then Jordan's on top of the world. But, and I had lunch with Jacob about this in Nashville a few months back. And he's like, dude, things are so much better now. I get to spend time with my girls. I write, I go to the farm, I duck hunt, you know,
Yeah.
he gets to, you know, do it
Live
on his
life.
terms. Right. And I mean, you know, whenever you make the commitment as an artist, that's giving up a lot.
Yes.
You know?
Literally going to radio,
Yeah.
like interviews behind each other.
Right.
You know, and we kind of didn't realize it. And then we realized it and we're like, wait a minute.
It's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, we're each other's, you know, we used to live across the hall and now we're competition. And it's,
Right.
And I think they seem to be in a better spot,
Yeah.
you know, because they're working together.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and making really good music.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Today we got a special guest,
Yeah.
Forest Whitehead. Thanks for joining us, Forest.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Chad.
I'm Jason.
Yeah, you're Jason.
Thanks for joining the NexGen podcast. Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
How about it?
Let's do it.
Forrest, we want to know how it all began for you. Where did your love of music come from? Early age? Later on?
Well, I grew up in church, so watching the worship team on church, like my mom took me probably way before I was ready, like took me to the worship leaders, like, hey, he plays drums, you don't have a drummer. And then the next couple of Sundays I was playing every Sunday at church, and that's where it started. I was in drum lessons. So for me, living in a small town, music kind of was that, kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I was in my room, you know, playing drums, listening to Brad Paisley records, trying to learn guitar. And for the most part, you know, it's just like when something you're interested in, you're really self-motivated with it. I just picked up instruments that I was just curious to figure out. So starting on drums, I was like, well, you can't really write a song to drums.
Yeah.
So I needed something like keyboard and, you know, guitar. And so my grandma actually bought me all the instruments starting out, whether it be the Walmart guitar or the Casio keyboard that opens that door to like, hey, okay, I could do this, you know? So around 11, 12 is when I wrote my first song and became really interested in songwriting. Started with drums, and then songwriting was like, okay, if I could pick up a guitar and write a song or on a keyboard,
Be a whole lot easier than drumming.
be a lot
to it.
easier. But I will say, you know, learning drums first does kind of lay that layer of rhythm where any instrument that you move on to, it kind of helps you. So I always tell people that are interested in music that if you can figure out the drums, that it just makes a lot of the other things easier.
Were you playing the drums in church?
Yes, and
Okay.
you know, and at the
But
first-
mom didn't want you to have drums in the house? Is that what
we
it was?
did have
You
drums
did?
in the house, and I think they regretted that pretty soon after.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was, I think before electric drums were really affordable like they are now. You know, so I had the, you know, $400 or $500 kit from the local music store. I can't remember what brand it was, but they weren't very good, but it didn't matter. It was enough to annoy my mom and dad, but enough to, like I said, keep me busy on the weekends instead of going off getting in trouble.
Build a foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I was in bands a lot growing up to where the neighborhood kids or whatever, it's like, hey, y'all come over, let's jam, let's make some music. And it was just a good way to grow up whenever I think back on it. You know, we had, it was a true garage band. My dad built a huge garage out on our property in the country. And, you know, it was also in a subdivision though. And I never knew it 2 years later till one of my neighbors said, well, we heard you practicing all the way on this side of the circle, you know, because we'd go out and crank up the amps and have the microphones and put on little shows for New Year's Eve. And so that's how I grew up, just like really hungry to do music and not really, I didn't know how it worked. Like I didn't know how the music industry worked. I just knew that I loved it. And I was like, I got to move somewhere, which at the time was in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was like, I got to move somewhere to a bigger town where this can actually, I can figure something out.
Was your family musical?
No, I mean, my mom played a little bit of piano, but reading notes on a page and playing piano is a little bit different than playing by ear, not knocking one or the other. I mean, I took piano lessons and my piano teacher dropped me because I wouldn't learn that way.
Yeah.
But I was motivated to play by ear, listen to a record and figure it out. So that, and I learned later in life that moving to Nashville and watching session musicians work, that's what they do. They just figure it out on the fly.
Figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
many
they don't
good
have
musicians.
anything, laid out for them,
Yeah.
more so than make something happen. You know, that's why they're paying you to be there, is to make something creative and that sounds good. So that's what was intriguing about Nashville. Early on, I took a few trips and spent a little time in the studios here. And I was like, I gotta be there.
Got to be there.
Yeah, and I didn't know, like I said at the time, whether that be songwriting, playing guitar, playing on the road. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to be around it.
So the 10-year-old Forrest, what was your music of choice?
That's right. Yeah. That's
You
what
know,
I'm
it was a lot of everything. So, I mean, the popular local station was 94.5. And so it had everything from Eminem to Nickelback to, I liked Alison Krauss. I liked, whatever we were playing at church. I feel like I was, growing up, I just loved, and this makes me, a lot of people don't like it when I say this, but it's like, I liked what was popular. So like ending up doing pop country music, it's always been like fascinating to me to figure out how do how does a pop song make it? How does a popular country song happen? I had no interest in being the indie rock band that nobody heard about that was touring in a van with a dog across
that
Texas
only the
with no
cool
air
people
conditioning.
thought was cool, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And it was just, I wanted to figure out how to make a good living with music. And I knew that meant having hits, which means having, something commercially,
Radio
commercially that resonates. And so that's always been kind of like the driving force of being in Nashville.
I didn't start or talk before we started recording. I didn't ask Forrest, what year did you graduate high school?
2009.
Okay, so he's 10 years younger than us.
Yeah.
But I would say that a lot of our music, like a lot of the same popular stuff, was popular. I mean, I guess we had Nirvana and stuff like that.
Oh,
but,
yeah, I mean,
but it was still probably being played then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
90s was a good era, but 2000s was a great music era as well.
Yeah.
Well, anytime that you could walk in, I remember walking into a Walmart and buying an album or buying a cassette even.
Which is foreign now.
Yeah, and
right?
so even anybody that's experienced that generation, I have respect for, because it was a different type of consumer that put $15 down on the counter and
for one song.
Right, that you've heard. You didn't know if the other songs were going to be good, and then you became a diehard fan, and you buy everything that artist has now.
Yep.
It's a different way that people consume music now, and the industry's changed a lot. And I never could predict starting out that it would be that way, but
I don't think any of us could.
yeah, it's just ever changing with technology and Spotify, really.
Yeah, Spotify. We've talked about that a little bit. Streaming today is nowhere near the revenue for an artist as the old days of buying an album.
Not at all. No, not at all. There's an important word called mechanicals. And a mechanical royalty is when somebody, like we talked about, goes and puts down cash at a Walmart, and that's mechanical sell.
Okay.
Now everything is digital, meaning the industry, whenever you were selling mechanicals, you could have track 13 on a Tim McGraw record that nobody heard. It was never a single,
But
and
it
still
was
make
there.
$100,000 that year.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have the single that's being pushed to radio, or if you don't have the viral song, you're struggling to just be a songwriter. And that's why a lot of kind of what I've leaned into was learning music production. I supplemented my songwriting income by taking on projects and helping other people create their album. And that really helped me survive in Nashville instead of just being one-sided of just a songwriter. It's like not only as a songwriter, but I can help you produce. So even if you're not cutting my song or we don't write together, bring me something you're excited about and let me make it better, type of thing.
So 15-year-old Forrest, you're in a band, right?
Yep.
At that time. What did you play in the band?
Yeah.
Every
Guitar.
instrument?
Yeah.
Well, no, just guitar. I mean, I was never in a band with anybody that was excited to be, sing, and I never was the greatest singer. So I'm not either. Forrest. Yeah, so I've always, tried to work hard at that, and now even I'll highlight more of my voice as a background vocal on the productions that I do, and I'm very happy with that. But growing up, I just always was like, I wanted to be the person in the band on the road singing the songs, and eventually that morphed into, well, I just want to play guitar for a successful act, which turned into, I want to write songs and I want to produce. So it's just this domino effect of like what you think you want, and then it changes. So
what was the talent show song that Forrest was playing? Because Forrest had to be in the talent show, right?
Man, honestly, I played my own song.
That's
I
awesome.
wrote a song about my hometown.
Okay.
The hook was from in the middle between Shreveport and Texarkana in Blanchard, Louisiana, and the song was about my hometown, and it kind of got people passed it around on a little CD, and I was a fan of it.
Yeah.
But that's what I played. And
high school,
and also was an influential time because it showed me like what writing a simple song can do. That was like one of the first songs that I wrote. And so for people in the high school to like really like, oh, this is cool, man.
Good. Yeah.
And like, take pride in it because it was about their hometown. Like I was like, cool.
Validation.
Writing songs is cool. I got to do that. And then before that, I'd written a song about my grandpa and seeing what that did to my parents. And like, I was like, songwriting can have an effect. And, so I don't know, in the most cheesy but cool way, I fell in love with it and just studied songwriting and songwriters, and had to move to Nashville.
That's awesome.
So was the fascination with Nashville as a Louisiana boy, was it more about the songwriting, the artist here, or country music in general?
Well, this is a funny way to look at it, but we come from a very, I would say, it's a lower middle class, more lower class, a lot of trailer houses, a lot of just different side of where things were. And so the reason I had to move to Nashville, because I knew I can't make a living in this type of climate in the middle of the nowhere country. And this is not knocking where I grew up, more so than created that hunger of, I know people move to Nashville and make it. And all I knew was music. So I had to get out of where the three jobs were: working in the oil field, working for the train station, or, working for whatever your dad does, which at the time my dad worked at a plumbing supply house. I was like, I can't be in this town and do that. Yeah. I love music too much. So that was the driving force so it was a thing of, I don't care what I have to do. I just have to move there and make money. And all I know and care about is music, so
you got to figure it out.
I got to figure it out. And that feet to the fire moment, 18 years old, I pulled a travel trailer up. We parked it at KOA Campground, Music Valley Drive.
On Briley Parkway.
And this was actually, if y'all remember, we had a huge flood, 2010.
I do.
Absolutely.
So, and all of that was underwater. My trailer would have been underwater had I not sold it like 2 weeks before that. I found a roommate, and early on in my journey in Nashville, I figured out the trailer, the travel trailer was a hard way to make it in Nashville. So I was up here for a few months before I made a few relationships, and someone had a room coming up. Dude, just move in, rent a room from me, sell your trailer, and that sounded good at the time. And that was the initial driving force, though, was like I saved up enough money working at a bait shop back home to where me and my dad bought this travel trailer. In 2009, we pulled it up. 2010, the flood happened, and I moved into, I don't know if y'all know an artist named Ryan Griffin, but he's somebody that has a Tequila and Lime song, and he has several things out on Spotify, not necessarily a traditional radio, but But he was the first person that opened up and rented a room to me. So it's like those relationships, even 10, 15 years ago, are still relevant here in Nashville and in the music industry. And I've learned that's a lot of how this town works.
You know, that he had just hit on something that Jason and I think we preach the gospel of relationships all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to hear somebody else, like completely not in our industry, but I think you're about the third or fourth person guest that we've had on that is like, it starts with relationships.
Yeah.
You got to have,
Yeah.
there's somebody that reaches out to you or extends a hand that creates it, whether that be technology or music or whatever, that relationships drive it.
100%. So you moved here all by yourself, or did you move with somebody?
No. So I had a roommate. We had some, that
You
winter,
moved from Louisiana. You had a roommate that moved with you?
I was living with my parents, but he was from Spring Hill, Louisiana, another small town.
Okay.
Close to Magnolia, Arkansas. And we ended up saying, all right, let's give this Nashville thing a try. I think it was just exciting for him at the time. I didn't think he knew what it would take. But we were here a few months, and we got a lot of snow randomly in that December, which wasn't the norm. The pipes froze in the trailer, water flooded the trailer, and was just coming out the door, and pretty much destroyed anything that was on the floor of the trailer. And so whenever I came back that day, he was just like, I'm gone.
He's like, bro,
I'm out, man. This is too much. And so he went back home, and we're still good friends to this day. But that being said, I did have a roommate, but that was one of the hardships earlier on where I was just like, man, should I go home? And I didn't even I was driving my grandma's car. I didn't even have anything to pull the trailer with. So now that I lost the roommate, I can't afford the $700 rent or whatever it was at KOA downtown. Now I got to find a way to get this trailer out to Lebanon where I can afford the $300,
$300
a month rent.
Yeah.
So it was at that stage in my life, trying to figure out like how bad do you really want this,
Yeah.
That's a struggle. Struggle can be a good thing too, though.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And so that was when you were 18, and what you moving to Nashville or driving up to Nashville at 18, what was your plan? Were you going to start another band? Were you going to write some songs? What were you thinking overall?
I feel like any creative goes off that gut feeling of just like, I don't know, this just feels right. I moved to town and I just walked up and down Music Row. I literally would leave my trailer in the morning and come back in the evening, but spend all of my time just trying to see somebody,
Door
just
knocking?
trying to, not necessarily, but I mean, I do remember this was at the time before, it wasn't odd to have a burnt CD of your music, and that's the way that they called them comps, compilations of like what you've been working on. So I would walk around with my comps and try to hand them to different publishers, and that never really went anywhere until, again, I made a relationship with somebody that pretty much went to bat for me and was like, hey, you need to listen to this kid. And it was someone from ASCAP, if y'all know the ASCAP building downtown. Somebody that worked at ASCAP was the one that really turned a publisher's ear for me the first time. And yeah, it's just one of those things. All of a sudden you have the right ear, and what you were doing last week that nobody cared about, all of a sudden this person's excited and you're getting meetings and things are connecting. And yeah, Nashville early on for me, when I left Louisiana I was all fires. By the time I was I would say a sophomore, I was like, I'm getting out and I'm going to do something. And so to see things, it took about 2 or 3 years for things to connect. But when they connected for me and I got my first deal offer, then yeah, it's hard to explain to your parents, like, things are going to happen, keep sending money. My grandma.
You send me a little more money?
Yeah.
How many times did you want to quit and go back home?
Oh my gosh, man. I feel like even after being successful, you want to quit. I mean, that's the thing. It's like things that you think that they'll turn out a certain way, and then you experience the best case scenario.
How many people in Nashville deal with imposter syndrome? And that's where
I feel like it's very common.
Very common?
I really do. And I feel like
Because you mentioned wanting to quit after you get going and moving. Like maybe you still don't believe in yourself even after you get going.
Necessarily not believing in yourself, more so than when you figure out how the traditional music industry works. And you see how songs are chosen and pushed up the chart and why somebody may get this gig or that gig. Just like any other business, there's those types of things that it's better to not know when you're getting started and just be freaking passionate about it. Be naive. And I envy that of my younger self, of just knowing less and just going all in and loving every second of it, whether it be on the radio or not, or whether it be somebody's so artist that's signed, that's recording it or not.
Yeah.
It was just pure passion of getting
writing
excited.
it because you loved it, writing it because you
loved it.
Yeah.
Having blinders on, right?
Yeah.
Is important sometimes.
And you weren't committed to the success of, because if you can't be a songwriter and only be happy when you have songs on the radio. That's just, you have to get in love with the process.
Yeah.
And be okay with 80 to 95% of what you do not be heard or cared about.
It's funny. Forrest and I were talking a little bit, and I mean, I have no music ability at all, but I feel like
Didn't you say that you almost wrote a song one time?
No, I have notes in my, well, maybe me and Forrest did. I always keep notes. My daughter and I play. I would say poems more than songs, but I'll always jot stuff down. But it's so funny to me how long songs can lay around and never get cut.
Oh, yeah.
Never get cut. And then all of a sudden, the right artist cuts it.
Right.
And all this. I know Luke Combs, one of his recent singles, the Wild Things song.
Yep.
That song had laid around Nashville for like 10 years.
Yep.
And been pitched to artist after artist after artist. Nobody cuts it. And now he cuts it, and it's like, whoa.
Takes a believer. Takes somebody standing up saying, no, I like this. I think this is cool. And that costs a lot of people's job whenever they say that and it doesn't work out.
And it doesn't work out.
That's what the holdup is in Nashville. People can meet and greet and date you all day long as far as like, let's have all these meetings, let's go to lunch. But when they make the decision to sign you,
Yes.
that's when they have to go to their higher ups or people that look to them and say, all right, are you sure you're going to put it on this?
But
And
to your point though, that blinders and that, hey, I just need to keep my nose down and write good stuff, write stuff that I believe in, and hopefully eventually it pays off.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you there's no telling how many songs Forrest has sitting that may or may not eventually be that song.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, the thing I know about Forrest, I've seen from social media and other things, he's consistent in what he does, right? It's probably something you've learned over time. As long as you stay consistent, develop the right relationships, it's going to come.
I feel like a lot of it too is finding something that it's that where that passion aligns with. I always tell people if you're looking at the clock all the time trying to run down the clock, then you're probably not doing the right thing. If it's the days in the studio to where I look up, I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I'm late for whatever, or that the time just kind of chips away.
Days.
Well, I feel like if you can find something that, you're passionate about in that way, where you get lost in it, that it becomes easier to work and do the tedious work. Because a lot of the stuff that I do as a producer isn't on stage or in front of people. It's behind the closed doors after everybody else is gone. You're spending a lot of time tuning a vocal or trying different chords or, doing all this stuff, in an isolation type of thing. So it can get lonely as a producer because you can write the song, but most of the co-writers leave by 3 and you're up till 11 doing the track. Yeah. So that being said, it's just, you got to find something you enjoy to spend that much time to it. Because you could put in all that work, send it in the next morning, and it'd be crickets and not hear anything back. Or you could spend all that work and send it in, and the publisher says, this is awesome. I want to go play this for Tim McGraw's people or whatever it is. And that fuels the fire again. But that's the high and the rush of being in Nashville and around people that can enable those opportunities. But you never know, you never know which one it'll be. So you get in the habit of just writing a bunch and getting committed to showing up every day for that, doing a bunch of videos, whether it be YouTube, whatever else you're trying to grow. And then there's going to be the 20% standouts.
Yeah.
and then that's really what it was. I've created all types of different music being in town, whether it be rock, whether it be crazy rap country, whether it be, but the one that really stuck with me was whenever I did the pop country. And so that's what I really leaned into and branded myself as people that know me. If we're working in the room together, that's the type of track they expect. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Even though you can do other things, it's kind of like you have to be known for one thing in a way.
Yeah.
So that's what's helped me stand out, I guess, rather than just being another songwriter producer with a laptop.
You found your lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you first got to Nashville, going back to that, and you were walking up and down Music Row, at that same time, did you do gigs on Broadway and that type of thing?
It was more, if you heard of the Commodore downtown, they had songwriter nights. There was a place called Douglas Corner, listening room.
Yeah.
Again, I was more really focused on trying to further my career as a songwriter. So anytime that I was playing out, it was very focused on trying to get in front of publishers or other people in town who could hear my songs. And that's ultimately, at the listening room one night, that's ultimately how I got approached by publishers who said, "Hey, come in Monday. Here's my card. Let's talk about these songs that you played." And those doors open only by being present and being in a town like Nashville, and just you never know when it's going to come. So you may play 10 different shows, and at one of those shows, the right person's there that
You can't mail it in. You can never mail it in.
Oh man, and you can't. And that's the same thing too. Like even you write your first hit or whatever, you can never recreate that. They never happen the same way twice. And I feel like, there's frustration, but also it's cool.
It's almost the beauty of it too.
Yeah, it's cool because you don't know where the next big idea or the next big song's coming, and that's why you get excited about every one.
And when you were doing the listening room and other things, you were by yourself solo at that time?
Yeah, they did right around. So anytime that I would do a show, it would be me and 3 other people on stage playing, and we would just pass song to song. And at the Bluebird, they do what they call in the round. So you're not on a stage, you're in the middle of the room in a circle, kind of like what we are right now. If we all had guitars, and there would just be people on 360 around us listening.
It's probably a good thing I don't have a guitar and I'm not singing.
I got one up the street. I'll go grab one.
It's a good thing you don't, Chad.
Yeah, it's probably. I don't know that we want me singing on here. I'm not. I won't ever claim
You
to be
keep
a singer.
mentioning that all the time. I think you really want to sing.
No, I don't want to sing. No.
Today could be the day.
Today could be the day.
No.
So, are you in denial?
That maybe I am a good singer. It's down deep somewhere.
Yeah, I think you really think you are.
No, I don't think it. You can ask my wife. I don't think I'm a good singer.
She tell you to keep to your day job all the time? Is that what she tells you?
No. She wants me to shoot for the stars, but singing is not one of the stars.
Oh, so you had a band back home. You came to Nashville. You were kind of solo, working on songwriting, right?
Yep.
Developing a name for yourself. Did that transition for you into being in a band?
So I learned early on I wasn't the best singer. I wasn't the best guitar player. I wasn't the best songwriter. And you're the big fish in the small pond in your little town, right? And so it really changed the direction of like how I approached. It took 2 or 3 years for me to get out of my own way in a way where I wasn't trying to sing on everything, wasn't trying to like write the whole song. And like I was very proud of my ability as a musician or whatever, but it took years to kind of like come into that and be like, chill, you don't have to do everything. And the reason I say that is because the moment I got out of my own way and I said, how can I help the next person that comes in the room, their record come together? How can I make their voice sound better? How can I, then this created a chain reaction of people working with me, and they would go tell somebody else, hey, we wrote a song, he turned around a demo, and my vocal sounds really good. And there's a process as a producer that you can go and tune a vocal and make it really build someone's confidence on, you're sitting here writing a song and kind of halfway sing a vocal, and then you get the demo back and it sounds like what you hear on the radio.
Wait a minute, there may be hope.
That's what I'm saying. See?
may be-
That's what I'm saying.
I'm sure he can do
Today's
some things
the
with your
day.
voice.
So
For
you're
sure.
saying there's a chance.
I'm saying today's the day. Shout out Melodyne Auto-Tune. So these
Yeah,
are
you got auto tune. I'm assuming. So
Yeah, we got
I'm going to
auto-tune.
come out of here like Post Malone.
Yeah, so, but these were tools that I learned to use. I remember downloading the Auto-Tune or Melodyne in my trailer. The first time I had an internet connection was moving up here like consistently at the KOA campground, which is crazy to think about.
wild to think
It's
about.
crazy to think
Yeah.
about, but that was the timing.
Yeah.
But I remember downloading it, learning how to use it, and whenever, like I said, we would get done with a write, somebody would get the demo back. They'd want to play it for everybody. They want to tell everybody about the session. So I learned early on, stop trying to be the star.
Yeah.
Trying to help other people sound like the star.
Yeah.
And that's really what helped me connect on the way I was approaching this thing. Rather than somebody wanting to see me as the star, you know, what can I do with the guitar playing and the ability to produce something that makes this other person excited about it? And really, I've just been focused on that day by day. Whoever's in the room, like, how can they leave this room with something that they didn't walk in with, and also that they're excited about? That's the goal every day.
That makes me think when he says, you know, like being aligned with the star, and you know, Jason always talks about giving back and like what you can do to give back, and it's a little bit of a paradigm shift to me. Is what sounded like Forest had is like, hey, I could put myself first, or I can put other people at the forefront and be a part of it.
Yeah, you were in your early 20s when that happened, right? Early 20s,
I
mid 20s.
feel like it's trial and error. There's always this struggle where I would try to sing the demo. I would try to do my sessions weren't, and then you carry a session differently. You prefer somebody else, or you try to listen out their idea. Then there's flow. And then I was like, this is a lot easier. They're a lot happier. Like this is, and I feel like it takes the years of beating your head against the wall, wondering like, how do I make this work? Because I wanted to do music. It just wasn't happening the way that I thought it would.
Did you have a mentor that kind of talked to you about that, or did you just kind of figure it out on your own?
My mentors were songwriters in town at the time. And these are people I didn't necessarily know. These are people I looked up to. And again, back to that word, comps. I would gather comps of these successful songwriters, of publishers in town, and study what they did. And just, you know, young 18, 19-year-old trying to figure it out. I was just trying to mirror what other songwriters did. And now what's funny is I'm trying to mirror what other online business people are doing. And from that time, that's all I cared about. And so growing up, getting married, having a family, I care about other different things. I care about my freedom. And, you know, and those things opened up more things to where, you know, you start asking different questions. So my mentors changed over the years is what I'm trying to say. From whatever I was trying to accomplish, I've just tried to find somebody who's done it and do what they're doing, you know?
Well, it's smart to find somebody who's paved the path before you, and to know that there is a path, right? That's pretty important to figure out.
And you got to be in Nashville. You want to be a songwriter, you got to move to Nashville. And so that's
even outside of the country pop genre. I mean, do you feel that way?
There's a whole lot of
even whether it be a Katy Perry, a Taylor Swift, these huge pop stars, they started
Christian
in
artists.
Nashville.
Yeah,
tons of Christian artists. They start in Nashville, and why? Because nobody else understands the concept of writing to a hook and having emotion and imagery in a song, and having it every single line in your song relate to your hook and pay off in a certain time, and all these things that Nashville teaches a songwriter and an artist. It can't be learned overnight, and it's just by spending time with really people that are, you know, have done it longer than you and here.
The best songwriters in America.
The best songwriters in America.
Best
I would say-
musicians too?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, yes, LA, you know, you've got New York, but so there's something special about Nashville and the talent that is concentrated. We were talking about East Nashville earlier. And even in that small area.
More
What's
talent,
going on
yeah.
right now at 11 o'clock on a Friday?
Yeah.
The type of music that's being created there will just blow your mind if you
Yeah.
knew what was happening 2 doors down.
Just in somebody's house down the street.
Yeah, just in, Katy Perry or Casey Musgraves creating a record or whatever, and you'll see him at the Mitchell Sandwich Shop or whatever 2 hours down the 2 hours later after the session. There's a creative vibe in Nashville, and even my mom, who's only lived in Shreveport her whole life, when we moved her up, we had kids in 2019. She loved East Nashville. She says, I just love the vibe over here. And then she writes different journals and stuff. And she said, I feel creative. And, it's different than Shreveport a
It's
lot.
contagious, maybe.
It is contagious. And it got me excited to see that even somebody else felt that way, because that's the way I felt. October, 2009 when I moved, you guys know the fall in Tennessee.
Yeah.
That third week of October. That's the time to be
That's
in Tennessee.
that's the time. Don't tell everybody to come here during that time.
Well,
we got enough people moving to
That's when I
town.
moved here, and it was like from the get-go, it just felt like this magical place.
Yeah, you
And I
get
was
here
like,
around the kickoff of football season, or football seasons when it's SEC schedules underway and the leaves are starting to fall, and
that's Tennessee's prime.
It's Tennessee's
Yeah.
magic. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Forrest, you have your path along the way. Jason told me to hold it before, for the interview.
Yeah.
But in I've got a video on my phone. I'm thinking it was it 2017, Jason, something like that. And
I think that's what you said.
yeah, I think it's 17. My little girl's at the Ryman singing a Kelsey Ballerini song to the top of her lungs. And in 2017, I had no idea that I would be sitting down talking to you, one of the songwriters on the song. And it's Love You Like You Mean It. So
I love that.
that is like, so all this stuff that you've tied together to get you there, what puts you gets you in relationship with Kelsey to write that song?
Yeah.
You've got
It's
a
a great
couple
question.
big hits with her. So
Great question.
we're talking about relationships. What lined that up?
And I love that you asked that, even piggybacking off what we were talking about earlier of how
Yeah.
far back the relationships go. A lot of times whenever you first create magic with an artist, nobody cares what you're doing.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying attention to you. That whole first record that have, back to back to back #1 songs on it. The very first record, it was created over years, 2 years of nobody giving us any attention. We were on an independent label. There were no hit writers on that first record. I was an unproven producer. Everything had everything against it, as far as it wasn't supposed to work. And what really helped it was after she released the first EP, this is back in the early days of Spotify,
Yeah.
Taylor Swift tweeted about it. And it was the Taylor Swift effect from that moment forward. And she hashtagged 3 of the songs that I had produced and co-written with Kelsey on this simple tweet that was like one that said, driving around Nashville with the Kelsey Ballerini EP on repeat. Hashtag 3 songs. And from that moment forward, Kelsey's lives changed. Our lives changed by you. Now your mom is calling you in the morning saying, I heard your song on the radio.
That's so cool.
And you're trying to explain to them for years before that, it's coming, Mom.
It's coming, I promise.
Something's
Yeah.
going to happen, and you never know where it's going to happen. But to answer your question, you asked about the relationship
Yeah.
and how do you end up in a room. The truth is, you're going to start in the room with people on your level.
Yeah.
And the opportunities of Nashville and things connecting, all of a sudden the room that you were in turns into a more valuable room over the years.
That's so cool.
And you kind of upgrade in your class the same way.
You went from being freshmen to seniors.
Exactly, and you're with that same group of people that it tends to be that y'all move to town. The guy that I end up co-producing a lot of stuff with, moved to town around the same time. We were both trying to figure it out. We were both playing songwriter nights at the Commodore. So the people you grind with is the people that you kind of harvest with in that way. very rarely have I seen it work where there's an already successful artist who's already killing it, and then there's somebody comes in from out of town, and then all of a sudden I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying the type of things that I've seen happen consistently are the rooms. I can't tell you how many artists or songwriters that I've overlooked or didn't care about, and then now they're the next who's who or whatever.
We were, Jason sent it on Monday morning a video of Hardy's commencement speech at MTSU, and basically he didn't really want to work with Morgan Wallen.
Yeah. Which is wild.
He's like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
I'm unproven. This kid's unproven. Yeah. Why do we want to work?
He's going to steal my thunder.
Yeah, he's going to steal my thunder, whatever. And then I would say that everybody knows who Morgan Wallen is at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and Hardy.
And Hardy. Yeah. So it's like, it's crazy. To your point, you go to, it's almost like building a team, a team in sports. It's like those first few people that are there that, suffered the losses and were part of the organization when you were, 2 and 14 or whatever. And then you start winning, it's probably more gratifying.
Yeah. And you never can predict where it comes from. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship or a song, like the ones that actually end up making a difference and making a career out of this thing. You never can pinpoint what those will be. You mentioned Love Me Like You Mean It. That was one of the first moments as songwriters who nobody cared about. We weren't proven. I took that song around town, played it for other labels, and nobody cared. They're like, this is way too pop. They're literally the first email response when we turned that song in was, cool song, but it's way too pop for country radio. That ended up being the one that broke open her career and started things for her. So it also showed me early on that you can't trust what, even some industry people, it's all opinions.
Yeah.
So if you trust your gut on being true to like what gets you excited, I feel like that's what Kelsey did early on, and more so than being influenced by what the label wanted her to do. She had a vision for that project and gave me a huge opportunity by allowing me to produce it and co-produce things for her.
I can tell you, I had at the time, I guess it would have been a 9 or a 10-year-old little girl.
Yeah.
That album, whether I wanted it or not on repeat, it was on repeat.
I love it.
Like every word, right?
I probably could sing Peter. I'm not going to. I could probably sing Peter Pan.
Oh man, see now, and the funny thing about it was this was also at a time where the industry was changing. Where streaming's taking over. Labels don't have as much money to spend, so we can't invest a lot in making records. So producing on a laptop was just now on the cutting edge of. You don't need to go downtown with the big board and all the fancy gear to produce a record. So all of her first few records were done on a simple laptop and software. Yes, Pro Tools, Logic, virtual instruments, virtual guitars. And now that's the normal thing that's going on. But at the time, we were turning in tracks to the label and they were like, how are you guys doing this? There's no musicians. You're not hiring studio time. There's no cartage fees. It wasn't the normal way to do records. And so it was kind of a mystique in a way of like, they would just say, okay, go do 5 more songs. And we would come back and make it happen. And it not cost a lot of money because that really helped and gave opportunity for a lot of producers, not only me, but people that learn how to produce on their laptop. That's also why I'm passionate about showing other people how to do that, because that was the connecting thing for me. Okay, this label needs a song right now. I can't have the luxury to afford other people or book studio time. How can I spend time on it tonight? Give something tomorrow morning where they can play it for somebody and get excited. And that right there is valuable here in Nashville.
Yeah,
where
for sure.
If I were living in, Shreveport or name 1,000 other different places, it's a lot less valuable.
Did you feel like you had an advantage there, like a technology advantage?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like I rode the technology advantage of producing on a laptop, and people that are much better than me, in this town all the time, just because they weren't utilizing that laptop, missed out on an opportunity. Where now it's a lot more saturated from people that can know how to do that. Everybody can throw together loops on a laptop now. Everybody's a track person. I came to town in a time to where that was a new thing. And I'm very fortunate and grateful that I kind of rode that wave.
Absolutely. So you toured with Kelsey Ballerini?
I didn't tour with her,
Okay.
but I would ride on the road. So I toured a little bit with an artist named Brandy Clark.
Yeah.
We toured anywhere that you could tour, whether it be overseas or the major festivals, the Ellen Show, Good Morning America.
Playing guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guitar and sing. There's actually a clip on YouTube floating around of our Good Morning America performance.
That's cool.
And it's wild to think at 4 a.m. every day or whatever it is that they
It's at
just
4 a.m. in the
wild.
morning?
Yeah.
Well, you
That
have
they
to get there to get ready and everything?
No, you're on.
On
Like-
at 4 a.m. playing?
Like, yeah, and because there's a delay of when they'll air it in case something happens
Are you
or
staying
whatever.
up the whole night before, or are you just
No,
getting up
you're
early?
there like at 3 in the morning.
Okay,
and
doing
then,
makeup and getting ready and everything.
And so, yeah, it was wild. And I'll say this, like, I mentioned those things because nobody really knew that I was working on a record and I'd gotten signed. I was doing this whole thing with Kelsey, but all the people back home saw me on the Good
Saw
Morning
you on
America.
Good Morning America.
They're like, he's made it. He's made it. And I'm like, guys, that's not even like...
This didn't pay real well.
It was, yeah. I mean, that was like a $400 gig, right? But at the end of the day, what I was most excited about was producing a project that would eventually be on radio, and that was the goal. I looked at being on the road as like, this will tide me over to get to being able to make records. And so, you know, that's the thing about Nashville. It doesn't matter what you're interested in. There's so many arms and legs to the music business. You just show up here, you'll find something that fits your style. Now my style is, I don't want to be away from my family. I don't want to be on the road. I don't want to be told when to be at a bus call at the Kroger at 12 a.m. tonight, just so I can be gone for 4 days and have to miss out on certain things in my home life. So having a business online and writing songs, producing records in my basement has created that freedom to where I'm not on the road as much and gone so much. I did enjoy it when I was younger, but I did it enough to where I was like, I'm such a homebody anyways.
You got a taste of it.
I got a taste, and it was enough to be like,
That's not
I
what
got
I
to
do.
figure out how to produce records because I don't want to be gone all the time.
You know, we were talking about that other show that I'd listened to with some other songwriters, and one of those guys had gone on tour last year on this major tour, and he came back saying the same thing. He said, sometimes artists are meant to be artists, and other people in music business are meant to be home and enjoying their
It's
family.
exactly right. And you don't know till you just kind of dive in and try. And kind of what I was saying early on, I was trying to make something happen with trying to be an artist and trying to do this. And that really wasn't who I was. Once I found out what my personality jived with and how, you know, I'm not the center of attention, center of a room, let me entertain everybody, look at me type of person. But there are people that are.
Yeah.
So if you can help that person, you can create a relationship to where you both can be in your role and it be, again, that flow rather than you having to be somebody you're not. So that's what Nashville has really taught me is like, you know, you don't have to be the best person in the room, but if you can help that person.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. You
know?
learned that at a young age, right? On giving first and giving back.
Yeah.
Me and Chad, we're both from the area. We grew up, born and raised here. We've had, I would say, successful sales careers, right? But we maybe learned that at a older age, the giving back part,
Yeah.
right? You know, it's kind of in our DNA to produce at a young age, right? And we're lone wolves. I feel like if I could have learned that sooner, right, things might be a little different. So I think it's cool that you learned that at a young age.
I mean, think about this show. Not that Jason or I, either one of us are we don't think that we're the best to ever do it, but
Of course.
that was one of the ideas or reasons that we wanted to do this show was to like a peek behind the curtain a little bit of what two sales guys have, you know, career sales guys have done and kind of the challenges that we've been through and like things that we've learned and a little bit of giving back. So it is cool to see somebody figured it out.
Yeah, we hope there's some people out there that listens to this and, you know, maybe they have aspirations. They're a 10-year-old boy from Kentucky or Louisiana, wherever, right, or girl, and they want to move to Nashville one day and be a songwriter and producer. So hopefully they listen to this and get inspired by it.
Yeah.
Right. That's our goal.
I mean, I'm inspired.
Absolutely. I know you're going to leave here and write a song. Go back to that songwriting, right?
Yeah, Forrest and I, stay tuned. We might have a single.
So we've been here all our lives, man. And, in the since you moved to Nashville, it's changed, or since the flood.
Right.
It's changed so much.
Right.
What do you think about Nashville when you first got here till now? Does it make you not want to go downtown anymore, go to Nashville anymore?
A little bit. But on the flip side of that, I do tell people, like, when I first moved here, you could go, you could leave from Hendersonville and get to Brentwood at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, not thinking anything of it. The traffic wasn't near what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And, growth in the city, it's bringing cool venues. What I don't like that it's doing is all the old Music Row buildings, all the old studios, all the old publishing houses are now Airbnbs or hotels or a restaurant or a bar. It kind of, Nashville has lost some of its unique part of, there were 2 streets down there, actually several streets, but and there's a little area in Berry Hill in Nashville.
Yeah.
But that's what makes Nashville special, is that you have these concentrated areas of publishing houses, recording studios. So that's the biggest part of that's like kind of heartbreaking. It's like, it definitely isn't the town that it was when I moved here. But that being said, I feel fortunate to grow my family here in Hendersonville, where they have the opportunity to be close to a big town with, all the things that I didn't have growing up, whether it be if they want to play sports or if they want to go to a good college or if they need a good hospital, all these things that you don't think about.
Yeah.
I'm proud that I live that close to Nashville because of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think we maybe take that for granted a little bit, right? Being from here.
Yeah.
I just miss when you can cruise 2nd Avenue.
You can't right now, right?
No.
It's all dug up still.
Man, we used to be able to that was like the thing, man.
That's what you did.
You could go downtown, 2000, 2001, 99, 98, listening to, Dr. Dre.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Have a nice day cafe. What was some of the other
we were
places?
cruising Mix Factory.
Mix Factory.
Yeah, Bar Nashville.
Yeah,
you just cruise 2nd Avenue. Yeah.
There's stories I hear.
You missed out.
I'm telling you.
You missed out.
Stories I hear people on Music Row saying back in those times, late 90s, that if a $100 bill was blowing down Music Row, you didn't stop to pick it up. There was people making so much money writing songs, and that was back in the time of just where, like we said earlier, the mechanicals and people buying albums. And so that's the biggest change. Not only has Nashville changed, but the whole industry has changed as a whole. Spotify wasn't even a thing when I moved here, and so to kind of see that come and bring the industry to its knees, it's done a lot in the last 5 years even.
I know a guy growing up, a guy that lived close to my parents. I think Jason and I had talked about this, but I can remember growing up thinking this guy didn't work. Like, he was always home or he played golf like every day. And getting older, like through high school, I found out that he had a hit and had like 4 album cuts. And that's all he did.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I need to do that.
Some of the best advice that I got early on, and it was from other songwriters, and sometimes it would be in the form of, let's say, just for an example, this person writes Chattahoochee, a huge song.
Yeah.
And I'm finally in the room with them and I'm writing with them. And we're talking just like me and you are, and they'll open up. As a songwriter, you open up a little bit in the room. You get a little vulnerable. You say, man, I know I wrote all these songs, but I wish I would have bought rental houses. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have, and experiencing that as a young songwriter, I remember those conversations.
Good for you.
And so whenever things started to take off, that was the first thing that I wanted to, become interested in.
Yeah.
And we started buying places in East Nashville, and that's what really tied you over. It's not nowadays. This is how a songwriter survives. You have a hit, you take that money, you buy some real estate, and you do something with that money that when you're not having hits, you still have a little
Feeds
bit of
the family.
income. And that's the same thing. You just have to be, you can't just be one-sided. You just can't say, I'm going to be a songwriter and have a notebook full of ideas. Like, you have to be double-edged. I'm a songwriter and a producer, or I'm a songwriter and I'm playing on a guitar. I'm a songwriter and a business owner, or like all these things that you have to kind of make work to be in this town. Like, the days of just being a songwriter and, like you said, having one hit and living
30 years.
even 30 years. That's no longer happening.
Yeah. It's good to hear.
So when did you feel like you became a producer in town? Was it after a certain song or?
It really was seeing the reaction of turning around demos. The old way of doing it was a publisher would book once a month the musicians, the engineer, the studio time, the catering. It was a big event. And so all the songwriters on that label would submit their songs and try to get on this one slot of getting the demos done. This happened maybe once, twice a month. And it cost a lot of money. Well, now, all of a sudden, that's what it was when I moved here. Like, I remember so many studio bills that I didn't pay because they would be the publisher would be billing my portion of it. I didn't have money to pay it. And sometimes they didn't even ask you if it would be done. If you wrote with a signed songwriter and they needed the track done, they would just go cut it and you get a bill for it. So, and the reason they did that is because most of the time that bill would go to your publisher and you'd never see it. But if you weren't signed, you saw it.
Gotcha.
All these moments of saying, I can't afford these studio bills. Let me learn how to do this on the laptop. Let me buy a microphone, look up some videos, and just but taking that more serious. That's whenever I felt like a producer, is because I no longer was just having the iPhone work tape where everybody records on their phone and leaves, and that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And that's still, songs get cut like that. But what helped me kind of stand out was, hey, give me 3 hours with this, and then let me show you what I'm doing with this. And the reaction of other people, man, this sounds good, or I'll send this to my publisher, I'll send this to the artist right now. So many cuts happen just because I made something happen timely, and we weren't waiting on a studio date that's 3 weeks out. It's like, no, we just wrote the song on a Thursday, we sent the demo on a Friday, and they're cutting it on Monday. So much of that happens in this town. So if you can be that person in the middle that can make that happen and deliver, that's all they need is that MP3 file. So if you're a producer that can send that, it's so funny how simple you can send us one file and how many hours of work and thoughts and 3 different minds in a room toiling over an idea all comes down to one little MP3. That
I know, isn't it crazy?
And then it can turn into, $1 million.
Yeah.
One little MP3 that didn't exist before. So that's what's fascinating about being here in Nashville and the creative industry.
So technology as a whole has changed Nashville a lot,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, can anybody be a producer, songwriter, artist, or label? Or does it take more funds to be a label, let's say? Or is it very simple to start your
Depends
own?
on your goals. I mean, if you're wanting to be, your artist to be on major label type of radio, like major Cumulus type of radio, then that's going to take a lot of money. If you want to be an independent label that, really develops acts that you're passionate about, then there's plenty of labels and opportunity out there to, give talent the platform they need. Especially now, I feel like, and this is what I'm trying to talk to all my artists and friends about, is on the social media ads side of things. I never cared about social media ads till I started my own business online and tried to learn how to drive traffic, right? Well, you can write the best song in the world, but if you don't have traffic that's going to hit that page and click play on that video,
Nobody hears it.
Nobody hears it. And so this has become a new obsession for me too, beyond songwriting, is how do you drive traffic online? Because if I can figure that out for not only my business, I can help other artists. Hey, share a video like this, create content around this, create your own audience. That way you can go into labels and say, look what I built. Now let's partner up and take it to the next level. That's what a lot of people expect nowadays. They expect numbers. They expect you to be proven. Where back in my time of moving here, 10, 15 years ago, people would take a chance. They'll say, I'll throw $150,000 at that. 3 years of putting them on a little salary and seeing what happens. And that was the mood of Nashville when I moved here. There wasn't a whole lot of money. My first year was $18,000 a year as a songwriter. And, it slowly but surely
Part-time gig,
crept
yeah.
up. Yeah, I mean, but it was, and the first offer was $12,000. They said, we'll pay you $12,000, $1,000 a month. I was like, I wanted to quit my other job at the pawn shop. I wanted to quit mowing grass. So you're going to have to at least give me something to where I can, And, and then I learned that's part of the negotiation process. You never take the first offer. But at 18 years old,
you don't know any better.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's just been this trial and error thing for me of trying different things, being on the road, being a songwriter. And it always evolves. I know myself well enough to know that what I'm into right now or what I'm excited about will change 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's also from a creative standpoint, that's a good thing too.
I think so. I don't really get too attached on one thing. It's almost like the guy that's always talking about like the story was in high school or whatever, what happened back then. I'm always looking forward to like, what am I excited about this week? What's the next artist, the next thing? I love starting things from the ground up. And it confuses so many people because people, like when we have friends from out of town, they expect, are you writing with Kelsey this week? Are you doing this or that? And, those rights come, but I'm more excited about writing with a person you'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Because of what the potential of
Something
what can happen
new,
with
a
that.
new creation, right?
Did y'all hear that?
I heard it.
Me
you
and
got
Forrest.
to check a schedule.
we go cut our single.
Hey, can I tell you a joke, by the way?
Yeah, it better be better than last week because that was.
Is it
not
cool
good.
if I tell you guys a joke?
Yes.
So after a successful harvest, why did the farmer decide to go into a career in music?
I have no idea.
Because he had a ton of sick beats.
There it is.
Okay, that one is better than last week. I actually think last week's joke wasn't the joke's fault. It was the comedic timing from the person who delivered the joke. Was
I know,
way
right?
off last week.
Well, we're talking music today, so I thought a music joke would be
that's
good.
And we typically have some useless information. Will, I didn't know if you had any, but I've got some that Will is about to be attending Vanderbilt University. So that implies that Will is smart. So I have some useless information that he may not know. Do you know what is the easternmost state in the United States?
Should I guess? Or
You
just-
should guess, not Google.
You should know this, Will.
I'm
Come
gonna
on,
say
man.
Maine.
One would think Maine. However, the eastern and westernmost state in the United States is Alaska. The Aleutian Islands, which is part of Alaska, is actually in the eastern hemisphere,
Really?
meaning that it is the easternmost state in the United States.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay, good. There's probably going to be people fact check me, and it is it is a thing. You got to look at hemisphere
Well,
based.
it's kind of a trick question, right?
It's kind
In
of a
way.
trick question. One would, yes, Maine, continental
think.
U.S., yes, but yeah, the Aleutian Islands.
Good one. Appreciate that, Chad.
I'm just here for the knowledge.
So, Forrest, you mentioned something that hit home to me earlier. Your goal and desire now as a dad, as a business owner, right? Music producer is you want to be home. You want to be with your family, right? That's where you want to be. You don't want to be touring, all those things. And you mentioned how you're able to do that with technology, right? You have the right tools, the right technology, even the right relationships, right, to get there. So I think with all of that together, your experience, your relationship, your knowledge of the tools that you have to do that kind of made you think about starting your own online company, your own business, right?
Yeah.
Bringing all of that together and educating, helping other producers, right? Collabing with other people. How long have you been doing that now? And
Since 2020. So I think everybody has their COVID story.
that was COVID for you that made you. kind of go into that?
Everybody came off the road. There was nobody hiring out. Nobody was touring. Nobody was writing. Nobody was in studios together. So everybody was on Zoom doing writes, and everybody was, I realized that, if you relied on the road solely and you were a road musician and you only got paid if you showed up on stage for that $300 or $400 that night, if you're not on the road, you're going to starve unless you figure out something. A lot of people are going to getting different jobs. And at that time, I just saw an opportunity, again, a void on YouTube, that there was nobody out there that was really Nashville based sharing that type of information. But backing up a little bit, I've always wanted to start my own business. And I didn't know what that was. And at the time, I was looking at drop shipping. I was looking at Amazon. I was looking at all these.
You were looking at all the social media crazes, right?
Everything that was like the craze in 2016, 17, 18, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Just trying to learn something. I spent a lot of money on online courses. And I was educating myself in a way that I didn't know how things would connect. Meaning I never ended up launching it Amazon FBA. I never ended up doing anything drop shipping, but I learned through that. You need a website that you brand, and there needs to be a face to this brand that is consistent on delivering value. And in that simple way, any business floats on that. And so I started sharing what I'm passionate about. So where I was thinking, I'm going to drop ship a toothbrush, I don't know what it would be, just something random. Why don't I do something in the music? And I don't know why it wasn't clear before. I always thought, let me just do something in addition to this. But I'm passionate about music. I can tell somebody the reason why they should learn, how to produce and what that advantage has for you. So I had to come through that by reading books on successful businesses, and it usually has something to do with somebody that's passionate about something and wants to share a little of that. And I took the long road to figure that out. But what Music City Playbook is now, I used to try to help any songwriter. In 2020, my first thing was helping. I had this thing called a 7-day songwriter challenge. So any songwriter could learn more about writing songs. Well,
Do you still have that challenge? Because I think Chad might be interested.
I do. I'll hook you up, man. I'll hook you up. It'll send you 7 emails, once in the morning, once in the evening. But over 7 days, you get like a step-by-step tip on how to write songs and a video that shows you. But that's what launched the business. Starting there, I realized I don't just want to help songwriters. I want to help people that are like me, where they produce as well. So that's when I started the YouTube. That's when things really started to connect. So again, trying to make something work with something that on the 7-day songwriter was just a little too broad.
Yeah.
Trying to help any and every songwriter. Versus let me niche down to say, I want to help pop country producers who write songs.
Yeah.
And it made it so clear on what this business all of a sudden, could be for me. And that started out with the broad idea of, I want to sell something online.
Yeah.
I don't just want, and I've always been a fan of creating something once and it, being a recurring thing. That's the way any song or any project, anything that has been successful for me in my career, that's the way it's been. Where you put a ton of effort into it on the front end, but it pays out over time.
Yeah.
Online business is a similar way, where you create digital products, you create video, you create content like we're creating now, and it can help people for years to come. The same thing, the same topic that we're talking about, somebody could hit the Google and ask a question, and this video pop up and still be as relevant as when we upload it today. And that's what's fascinating about the online side of things. It's kind of like a song in that way. So that's
It's got staying power.
It does. And back to where I was traveling on the road, you live and die by one night, where your excitement for the whole day, you play your show and maybe you hit everything or you hit your solo right that night or whatever. A record, you spend all your time and you make it and you can replay it and listen to your car and listen to your headphones and just relive the work that you've done over and over and over. So that's what I've related to more of what I get excited about. And so online ventures are the same thing as writing songs to me. It's just creating what I'm passionate about and some of those things pay off. Some of them don't. A lot of them don't. You know,
Yeah.
that's saying a lot of the songs that you write, but there's the 10% that do.
Yeah.
The 10% of the videos that do make a difference. And so I feel like that's all that matters, is like if you can be excited about getting to that 10%, I feel like you have to be that kind of crazy and delusional to become a songwriter, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're going to fail 80-90% of the time. And so if you can get used to that, then, you know, you'll be good.
I don't know that it's that different than what we do. I mean, there's no telling how many folks we talk to in a given month, and you know, it's not always about the end game. We don't end up selling something in every conversation, or so it's probably a similar success rate. or
Business
hit
and
rate.
relationships is the same you know,
Yeah.
across the board, industry to industry.
For sure. For sure. That's been one thing that I've got out of our conversation today.
Absolutely. I mean, Forrest has a ton of passion in what he does. That's one of his reasons for success, obviously. But let's say you never got to the point, the aha moment, right? And let's say you decided to go back home. What would you be doing now if things didn't work out for you? What do you think about that? Do you ever think about that at all?
I couldn't go back home, but I feel like it would just be something simple. You know, the older I get, the more I enjoy the more simple things in life, whether it be just going fishing for an afternoon or...
I say that all the time. Give me simple.
Dude,
Yeah.
but you know, as a young kid, you moved to Nashville. I want to be on the road. I want to be on TV. I want to be, you know, you want all these things. And like the older you get, like, dude, I just want my peace. I want a good steak on the grill, and I want, you know, very simple. So to answer your question, what would I be doing? Something simple.
Well, you may have
You know?
found that. You may have found.
Hopefully owning my own business, though.
Yeah, it could have been a fishing YouTube channel. Like
Exactly. We were talking about that before we were rolling, which I think it's good to highlight for people listening out there, that when you're passionate about something and you share it and you inspire others, whether it be through YouTube or whatever, like whether it be the Guggen Bates guys or whatever, you can create a career on whatever you're passionate about nowadays.
Haley and I have tried to preach that to our kids. You know, we got one that's about to be a senior in high school and one that's going to be a sophomore. And, you know, yes, you have to make a living, but the better off you are if you can make that living doing something that you truly love, enjoy, and are passionate about, the better off you'll be. And I think Forrest is a prime example of that.
Yeah, I think sometimes in life and in your career, you maybe have to start out with something you're not as passionate about to grow and make a living, right?
Yeah.
Like the stuff you did before you got into music, right? Before you moved into Nashville, I think people have to understand that maybe they still have to go through that to make a living, but develop and build the plan to get to where you're passionate, right? And then hopefully one day, if you're passionate about starting a business, then it just happens.
Then it puts food on the table.
Puts food on the table.
Since we've got Forrest and we always do our podium,
I
think we may have the perfect podium for this.
I think it's a really good one. So every week, Forrest, every episode, we do the podium talk, where we do a top 3 of something, right? So we go number 3 to number 2 to number 1.
And we'll alternate. You'll give your third
Okay.
place. I'll give my third place. Jason will give his
So we didn't kind of give you a heads up on what it is, but we think you're probably going to be able to answer these pretty easily.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, I do have a question for you that I wanted to end with.
Yeah.
I know you got the business now. Things are going well with that. Where does Forrest go from here? What happens next for Forrest? Are you 100% into Music City Playbook? Are you doing other things? Are you still songwriting?
Yeah, so I still am writing songs. I'm still producing records. I'm doing what I've always have done. I'm just trying to expand on that and help other people learn how to do that at a level that sounds good. I feel like a lot of the misconception of being in a professional studio and being in Nashville, the bridge is getting a lot smaller on making that happen with the technology these days.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm really excited and passionate to grow Music City Playbook to where people that have gone through my programs or learned something from whatever I put out online, even if it's for free, have success or producing their own records and continue that circle, because that's honestly something that lives on after I'm gone.
Yeah.
You know, those videos will still be there, and songwriting and producing, records for artists will always be a part of my life. But I'm most passionate right now on creating content and creating things that, like I said, could serve years down the road, whether that be someone's album or a simple YouTube video, sending an email to my list, all these things that, I just want to be happy. So at the end of the day, I'll say this, I know this may be a little bit more, but even at the peak of my music career, there were a lot of things I was unhappy about because they were out of my control. Maybe it was political things, or like a lot of that stuff pushed me to open my own business because it was something that I could control, something that I could turn on and off the faucet of flow sometimes. And when you're in the music business, that's everything is up to chance and up to all these different things. So
It's hard to control your own destiny, right?
That right there.
Yeah.
And hanging it all on one artist, one song, I just can't live like that anymore with 3 kids and a wife and my mom to take care of. So it's forced me to look ahead in a way of, what are you passionate about? I want to share music with the world, but how can you make this more about, helping other people rather than who's writing songs or who's producing with me?
Yeah.
So I've let go a lot of that, of trying to be like the hottest producer in Nashville, working with everybody. And, I care less about that. I want to produce and work on the things that I want to do. And I also want to show other people how I've made a living, because coming from a small town, becoming a producer, like cheesy as it sounds, every single one of my dreams that I thought has come true. And so it's just one of those things I dream more for my kids and what I can provide for them now. And that's the dad talk for me of like, I was not even thinking about that stuff 2016, 17, 18, but had my first son in 2019, 2020, a lot of things happened. I lost my dad unexpectedly and COVID happened, unrelated, but and that also was the year that I was finally able to move them up from Louisiana. And so I saw a lot of life changes where I'm like, dude, do what you want. Yeah. Don't chase this industry if it's making you unhappy. Figure out something that you can get up every day and get excited about again. Because even at the peak of my songwriting success, there were days that I got up and I was like, I don't want to do this today. And so finding the passion again for what you're excited about, I feel like is a lot of my journey. And trying to stay excited about it.
Good for you, man.
So
that's awesome.
I think 2020 may inadvertently have opened a lot of people's eyes on, I was on the road a lot then, and it kind of let me know the same thing. Like, hey man, you got kids that are both about to be in high school. You get all their activities. It's funny when you miss the random Wednesday night dinner at the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, man.
Like,
it's my favorite.
It's, it sucks that you miss that.
Yeah.
And you don't want to miss that.
Oh,
so
of course not.
That's, I think that's really good advice to people out there from Forest. And it's cool to hear that from somebody else.
Awesome advice.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the podium now, guys.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so we're going to do top 3.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll go from 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Your favorite 90s country artist.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Who wants to start?
We got to be really specific, right? 90s country, like Force's business, right? Very specific.
I'm very specific. My 3. When you sent me this, I knew my 3 like
instantly.
Instantly.
Okay, well you get us started then, man.
Number 3 is Mark Chestnut.
Okay.
Didn't see that one coming.
Love that.
Bubba Shot the Jukebox.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite country songs of all time. Too Cold at Home. My goodness.
One of the best vocals.
Oh.
Funny story, we were talking about the Davis brothers earlier.
Yeah.
That was Stan Paul Davis wrote Too Cold at Home.
Are you serious?
That was their uncle had moved to Nashville, had his success with that song. And that was kind of their foot in the door of who they knew when they first came to town, talking about Jacob and Jordan.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the songs. And he was, legendary voice on 90s country.
I mean, that song, Too Hot for Golf. I'm not going to sing it,
Yeah, let's hear it.
No, I'm not, because I need forced auto tune.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll tune it after the fact. Post production.
Yeah, that's 3 for me.
Okay. So me personally, I'm not a huge '90s country guy, but
Wah, wah, wah.
I know. I mean, I liked rock back in '90s.
Yeah.
Personally, rock.
I like that too.
Hip hop, R&B.
I like
all
that too.
stuff. But I'll go popularity on my 3. So I'll say number 3 for me. I'll say Tim McGraw.
Okay.
Popular,
Just say
popular,
okay. Yes.
right? He had a lot of hit songs.
I mean, he's got a 30-year career. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
Yep.
Well, he's one of my numbers. So it's one of those things where he's from Louisiana.
And he's a
where I'm
Louisiana
from.
guy.
He is, yeah.
And so growing up, hearing his songs on the
Yeah.
radio, like that was
He was an influence for you.
huge influence.
Yeah. And he was the out front open solo artist, right? That had all the attention.
Oh yeah. I mean,
He was it.
And I learned
For a number
later
of
in
years.
life too that he wasn't as involved in the writing process. He knew great songs. He had people that he trusted to where
Yeah. Pick
that's
me
a
a
lost
song.
art. Every
Yeah.
writer, every artist wants to write their songs nowadays. Tim McGraw has just cut great songs.
Yeah.
And that's why you mentioned he's had a 30-year career
Yeah.
because he trusts songwriters.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, for sure.
What do you got for us for number 3?
So I'll probably have to. Garth Brooks was really influential to me, and because this was the live album was something that a friend of mine had burned a CD. I feel like back in those days, that's how you were exposed to music.
Oh yeah.
Your friend burned you a CD or something, and
Or a girl made you a mixtape.
yeah,
Yeah.
like man, and you would listen to every single song, kind of like buying a record. You would have an opinion on every single song. Where now we're so overwhelmed with all the choices on
So much.
Spotify of like if you don't like something within 30 seconds, you can skip it or
Skip.
whatever. Yeah, there was something about that time, but Garth Brooks was one of them, and I was like, yeah, I just liked his live show. I saw him a few times. I saw him when he did the flood relief concerts, talking about
Yeah.
2010 and the
Yeah.
flood. I went to one of those shows, and his songwriting was a big influence. And writing with a lot of the writers, whether it be Kent Blasey, who wrote, Not Going Down Until the Sun Comes Up, and a lot of his bigger hits. Unanswered Prayers was another song. In the dance, one of his biggest songs was another. He didn't even write it. One other songwriter solely wrote it, and Garth just knew that's
The dance.
Give me that one.
yeah.
Let me have that one.
He heard it at the Bluebird, and then knew I'm going to get a record deal with that song. Again, that's the magic of Nashville.
Yeah.
You're out and that song was unknown. That artist was unknown. They're out at the Bluebird. He hears it, says, "Let me record that." Gets a record deal and becomes Garth Brooks. That's number 3.
Timing.
I like it.
Yeah.
What do you got for number 2, Chad?
My number 2, you mentioned Chattahoochee. This was really hard for me. So I was torn with number 2. I have number 1. So I wanted to put Alan Jackson as my number 2. My mom will not like that Alan Jackson is not in my top 3. My number 2 is Brooks and Dunn.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, Brooks and
Yeah.
Dunn for me. Ronnie Dunn, I feel like when you get to heaven, Ronnie Dunn and Vince Gill and Alison Krauss are probably going to be singing.
Yep.
So Brooks and Dunn for sure is my number 2.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite song?
Brooks
You
and
have one?
Dunn?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, he put me on the spot. My favorite Brooks and Dunn song. It's not a 90s song.
No? Well, that's
No,
all right.
and it's so redneck. It's so redneck.
Which one?
Hillbilly Deluxe.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I absolutely
That's a good-
love
that's a good
that
track.
song.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my pick for my favorite Brooks and Dunn song. Of all time, that's my favorite Brooks and Dunn
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good duo. I like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Neon Moon, Red
Neon-
Dirt Road.
Yeah, Neon Moon to me is like easy to pick, like
Yeah.
as your
Yeah,
number
I
one.
love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But that's like Alan Jackson chasing that neon rainbow. That's
Right.
probably my favorite Alan Jackson song.
Yeah.
You mentioned
one of
your
the best
mom
vocals.
liking
Yeah, she loves
Alan Jackson.
Alan Jackson. Yeah.
Well, my mom loved Dwight Yoakam.
Oh, yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good
And
one.
he was big in the 90s, right?
Yeah, oh,
for
for
a
sure.
little bit. No, he's not in my top 3, but I just had to
Yeah.
mention
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I had to mention.
Shout out to my mom. For
Yeah, mom's
Dwight
gonna
Yoakam.
with it being this close to Mother's Day. Mom's gonna be mad that Alan, like she's probably seen Alan Jackson live more than any country act that she's seen. So
Okay.
she'll be a little disappointed in me, but that's okay.
Well, for my number 2, I'm going to go Alan Jackson.
Okay, there. See,
So
Becky,
my 1 and 2 is kind of a toss up, but his songwriting and his song in the 90s, influential. You still
Absolutely.
hear him a lot today,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Chattahoochee, right?
yeah. I mean,
It's
Yeah.
classic, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Remember when?
Remember
all
when.
those like those.
the fact that he got up that night and wrote that song, like,
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
talent.
yeah,
That's prime country music during that time when. Yeah, and then that's
and prime country music videos,
yeah. when
like
you
the country
actually-
music video.
You actually played videos on CMT or whatever
Yeah.
it was. back
Yes.
then, you know.
Alan Jackson water skiing in the blue jeans.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like, I felt like he's one of my uncles or something. Like I can see one of my uncles in East Tennessee doing
I
that.
could see him on Center Hill Lake now.
Yeah.
Jet skiing.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's my number 2. What about you, Forrest?
I want to tell the Alan Jackson story though. There's a story.
Okay.
I love Center Hill Lake. Have y'all
The
heard
trees?
this? Yes.
Yes,
Have you heard the
absolutely.
story?
Yes.
Y'all are locals. You should know
Yeah,
it better than
yeah,
I do.
yeah.
Y'all tell me the story then.
Yeah, so basically, Alan had this lake house that there were some trees that were obstructing his view of beautiful Center Hill Lake, and
Yeah.
he decided to cut them down.
Which
Well,
is a huge
no.
no.
This
on
is
that
on
protected.
Corps of Engineers property, and they don't appreciate that. So the way he gave back, or I think part of his penalty was, and this ended up being a thing for years, he played a concert
Yep.
from Center Hill Lake, would go on the dock and give back. And he did that for years.
Yeah.
And it became like this, like kind of a organic moment, no
Yep.
pun from cutting the trees, but yeah. So kind of good came out of the bad, I guess,
Yeah.
from, cutting the trees down and getting penalized. But
I'm sad I missed that.
Yeah.
So boats pull up, right?
oh
He's
yeah,
like right on the dock.
Alan
Well,
did these concerts. man.
Yeah, and if you've ever been on Center Hill Lake, there's no docks, but
Yeah.
there are only a handful.
Yes.
And yeah, he was. I'm Alan Jackson. I can go see my lake, man.
Yeah, I want to see. That's my lake. Chattahoochee.
Man,
He sold
that's just
that-
so funny to me, though.
Drive for Daddy. If y'all never heard that, Drive for Daddy Gene.
Yeah.
I bought these trees. I can cut them down.
Center Hill Lake is one of my favorite places in the world,
Yeah,
so
it's
I
beautiful.
completely get.
Yeah, you
why-
get it.
Yeah.
You get it. You need
Get
the view. Need the view.
Yeah. Awesome.
Number 2, Forrest.
No, my number 2 is I feel like one of the best vocalists in Nashville, and that's Blake Shelton. He's been around a while, but it's one of those things where hearing him on the radio, I don't know. He's done a lot of things since, but he's also one that picked great songs.
For sure.
And again, I think he was on. Well, you said Hillbilly Deluxe. He did another one.
Hillbilly Bone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
written by the same songwriter. I was thinking about that.
Really?
His name's Craig Wiseman.
Yeah.
We were talking about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
And again, a Nashville thing is you have these guys that now Craig, who had hits all throughout the 90s.
Forever.
He had a bunch of Tim McGraw hits, and Kenny Chesney, you name it.
Yep.
And now he owns a label, Big Loud, and that's who brought you Florida Georgia Line
Yeah.
and all of the new, again, the relationships from songwriters that go way early
back.
90s are still as relevant today,
Yep.
2024, here in this town of people that are on that grind. But back to Blake, he was one that cut a lot of Craig's songs. And I now, as a songwriter learning, when I moved to town, I was like, I like this Kenny Chesney song, this Tim McGraw song, this Blake Shelton song. It's all written by the same person.
all written by the same
I
dude.
like this songwriter.
It's all-
And so, yeah, that's
It's
what,
so funny that's what it is. It's not necessary. Yes, you like the artist, but
Right.
you find yourself liking a certain style
Yeah.
of song, and
or the way they communicate, or what
Yes.
they talk about, or whatever, it's,
Yeah.
it sounds like where you grew up, or,
Yeah.
know. So yeah, a lot of the artists are thinking, and I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, oh, well, I like this song. But then you move to Nashville and kind of start digging a little deeper and find out that these people you know, are connected to all these songs that you
It's
love.
a ton of Chesney songs, right? Craig
Oh
Mosman?
yeah, a lot.
Yeah. That,
Chesney was almost on my list.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Well, Chesney's early stuff.
I
were
liked
the
his early stuff
90s.
a lot.
Yeah.
Late 90s, right?
Yeah,
Well, he was
he was-
early 90s.
Yeah.
Probably
I mean,
too,
Chesney
right?
and McGraw basically
Yeah.
entered the industry at the same time.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings me to my number one, right?
Okay. You going with East Tennessee boy?
Chesney?
Yeah.
No. No.
Because you grew up in East Tennessee, so I don't know
well,
if you were
yeah, I
going
left
there.
East Tennessee when I was 11, so you would think East Tennessee, but it's going to be a Georgia guy.
Okay.
Travis freaking Tritt.
Travis Tritt's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
90s country
Yeah.
is not 90s country without Travis Tritt's mullet.
That's
for
a good one.
The Fu Manchu,
Hell of a songwriter too.
unbelievable songwriter. Again, the videos. Anymore, I mean,
Yeah, that's a good pick.
yes. Travis Tritt to me is the epitome, unbelievable vocalist, but the epitome of 90s
Yeah.
country music, and everything that was good about it to me is Travis Tritt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If I hear a Travis Tritt song on the radio, it's staying on.
Yeah, there's no
hearing-
mistaking who it is.
Yeah.
You know, some artists have that, like within, you know, a few seconds of opening their mouth and a
Yeah.
note coming out, and you're like, that's a Travis Tritt song.
That's true.
Yeah, Travis Tritt,
Good one, man.
number one.
I like that.
Number one overall pick.
So he's
for
a
me.
Georgia boy, though.
He is a Georgia boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's okay. Go Vols.
So my number one is going to be the most influential artist that I experienced as a 90s kid that didn't really love country music, but
Garth Brooks.
I liked what was on the radio, and I had a chance. So I don't know if you were in school at the time, but in the 90s, we I guess I was probably 5th or 6th grade. We took a bus to Music Row. On a field trip.
It was before me.
Before
Yeah,
you? Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a field trip to Music Row, and it was just at the time that Garth Brooks released Friends in Low Places.
Yeah.
And so Music Row was just
Buzzing.
with the Garth Brooks album, right? And
Yeah.
the song.
Yeah.
And at that time, I really liked that song, and it got me into getting his album,
Yeah.
right? And so, again, I wasn't a country boy, but I had his album, and I really loved it.
Yeah.
So for me, he was the most influential country artist for me growing up because of that song, because of that album, and having a chance to go to Music Row and actually hearing somebody perform it on Music Row in the recording studio. And that really struck a chord for me, being here local.
Yeah.
So-
Forrest and I were talking earlier, and we have someone we graduated high school with, and who's a writer, but he drove buses. He drove artist buses for a long time, like all through school. And Garth was one of the artists that he drove for. So
That's wild.
David always, you know, they lived up the street from us. So you walked in their house, and he would have like the No Fences album or whatever he had whatever it went,
The plaque,
5-time platinum
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's cool.
You know, but I'm not the biggest Garth Brooks fan, but I get it.
Yeah.
Morgan Wallen right now is Garth Brooks.
Right.
It's Garth Brooks.
Right.
Right. Like there's like every generation gets their crossover guy. I would
Right.
say there's a ton of people that became country music fans because of Garth that would have never listened to country music. And
Very true.
there's a lot of people that would say, I mean, Forrest is doing his pop country, right? There's a lot of people that say that that's not country music, and
Of course.
I also look at that and I'm like, why is it not? You know, if you think back and you listen to Johnny Cash, he's probably more rock. Like he was edgy for his time. So I'm like, just bring all the good music. How about that?
I always try to simplify it what does pop country mean? Popular country music.
It means it's popular. It
Right.
means
So
the
how do
majority like it.
That's right. And some people may think that, that's not cool, whatever. But like I said, I feel like that there is there's something about whenever a song resonates with a lot of people and it's said simply and a lot of people can feel it or relate to it. And, I'm more excited about those things than, like I said, the more independent projects that that feel like you need a strong fan base for it to work, man.
Yeah.
I feel like now what I mean by that is like you post something online nowadays and that sucker can go viral and you don't know which one's going to happen. You can't
Yes.
control it, but the people decide.
Yes.
It's no longer a label or other people that say, oh, well, I think this is cool.
Yeah.
So
America
let me
voted.
push this.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of thing. And figuring out how to write a song that appeals
Yeah.
to a lot of people is, that's what
Always-
Garth Brooks figured out.
Yes. I always
did.
think it's funny. We are going way long on Forest, so I apologize, but I always think it's funny whenever the art there's always the person that only likes the indie artist, right? Like,
Right.
There's those people
Just because
that,
they're unknown. Yeah.
right. And I always think it's so funny when either a song by one of those artists goes just off the charts, or all of a sudden that artist becomes popular. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, do you not like them now?
Right.
You know, like
Totally. Oh, I've
Zach
seen
Bryan.
it.
Zach Bryan's a
Absolutely.
prime example of like he
Yeah.
was. Everybody thought it was cool because they had discovered this guy.
That's right.
Like they were the first to discover
Through
him.
viral videos on social media.
Yeah, and now he's mainstream popular.
Yeah, to your
Yeah.
point. To your point, if they're discovered and the viewership goes way up,
Yeah, do you quit liking
he's
him?
he's going to be popular now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always think that's a neat juxtaposition, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Forrest? What's your number one?
So I have to go with Chesney. The
I like
Chesney
that.
Greatest Hits album was so influential in high school for me. Even whether it be like a friend of mine comes and picks me up and we're going to, and her mom or his mom's playing it on the car radio. Because that's how you heard
Yeah, you
music.
heard it then.
That's how you were exposed to things. It wasn't typing anything in your phone or whatever. And then, like, as a musician or as a songwriter at the time, I was like, God, I got to hear that again. So I'd
Yeah.
ask him, hey, can you burn that CD for me? Can you bring it to
Yes.
school or whatever? And then bugging that person for weeks till they burn
Yeah.
the CD and bring it. And then you're listening to it, and Chesney was one of the ones that was just on repeat. Even now, if I'm turning on Alexa or whatever, I'm saying, play King Chesney.
He's our generation's Buffett, right?
I'm telling you, man, he did it right, and he has again, he wrote, but he also has a best song picker
Yeah.
in these towns as far as like what will resonate, and that's again a tip of the hat to songwriters here in this town.
For sure.
I feel like a lot of the people, the artists that I like relied on good songwriters, and I may like that person's voice. I think Tim McGraw had a great tone and a great voice, but he cut great songs.
Yeah.
I will say an honorable mention and probably should be number one, but I just didn't listen to him as much as Chesney was Toby Keith.
Oh, for sure.
We gotta
Oh,
mention
yeah.
Toby Keith.
That's right.
Yeah, as far as '90s country goes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
And then this is somebody who could sit down and write a song within 15 minutes by himself.
Yeah,
And then have a hit record.
Yeah.
Now this is a different type of artist here, and
he does have the most played song of the night, like the biggest
should have
hit.
been a cowboy.
Yeah, it's the biggest '90s hit. So single,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Couldn't let this conversation go by without mentioning it. Now, even like I said, I didn't have Toby CDs like I had Tim McGraw or Ken
Yeah.
Chesney,
Yeah,
but I loved his songs and I loved hearing them on radio.
yeah. I feel like there should be a whole list of honorable mentions, so anybody that wants to comment can comment their
Yeah. Let
top three.
us know who your top three is. I mean,
Yeah.
90s country. We all talked about it. There's a ton of good artists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's hard to pick the top three.
I made
Yeah.
I made really good friends with Daryl Singletary, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But I look at him as a just too much fun. I mean,
Yeah.
dang, that freaking song was awesome. And then Diamond Rio. There's like so many.
Yeah.
yeah. And Dana
Good
lives
stuff.
in Hendersonville of Diamond Rio. He's one of my buds too. So, that was a great era of country music. So that's a fun one. I'm glad you wanted to do that one this week.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being with us,
Hey.
Forrest. We appreciate it, man. Great getting to know you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Hopefully
enjoyed
the
this one.
viewers were entertained, and hopefully we inspire somebody
Yeah.
to start
absolutely.
something for
Hey,
sure.
Plug the YouTube one more time.
Yeah. It's Forest Whitehead on YouTube. or Music City Playbook. You can type in either one of those, and I'm sure something will come up.
Go check him out and stay tuned for my single with Forest. Yeah.
Don't forget to follow the NexGen podcast on YouTube as well.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, everybody. All right.